We are going to begin this evening with a statement, and it will be read by Vice Mayor Michael Sutphin.
The following statement is supported by the entire Town Council unanimously. The Blacksburg Town Council acknowledges the deep concerns expressed by many of our citizens regarding the ongoing conflict and humanitarian crisis in Gaza and Israel. We have heard the impassioned calls to take action on this matter. While the Town Council does not typically weigh in on international affairs, we are not indifferent to such tremendous suffering and loss of life. All human lives are precious, regardless of ethnicity, religion, or geography. The devastating violence and dire conditions affecting civilians in the region constitute a tragic crisis on all fronts. As a local governing body, we recognize that we lack the authority or means to influence events unfolding half the world away. However, we fervently hope for an end to the violence and for humanitarian aid to reach those in desperate need. Promoting peace, human rights, and human dignity must be our shared goals as we bear witness to this catastrophic loss of life. Blacksburg prides itself on being a welcoming and inclusive community for people of all backgrounds. Understandably, this conflict has surfaced strong emotions and divisions locally, just as it has around the world. Whatever one's views, we urge our residents to treat each other with compassion, empathy, and respect during this difficult time. We also call upon all parties involved to pursue every possible diplomatic effort to cease hostilities, facilitate humanitarian relief, and work toward a just and lasting peace in the region. Only through dialogue and negotiation can this cycle of violence be broken. We remain committed to creating a community grounded in unity, understanding, and goodwill toward all people. Though an ocean apart, our hopes for an end to this terrible conflict are united with people of conscience everywhere. And this statement can be found on the town's website at blacksburg.gov and on our social media channels.
We are also sending it to our U.S. Congressperson, our U.S. Senators, Senator Kaine and Senator Warner, and the President of the United States. So we are getting our message out.
Thank you.
I think we.
Oh, yeah. I got that out of order, didn't I? Will the Vice Mayor please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will go on now to our consent agenda, and today that includes approval of the town council minutes for March 19th and March 26th. What is council's pleasure? That's the word. What is council's pleasure?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Ford.
Aye.
Hager-Smith.
Aye.
Mattingly.
Aye.
Sutphin.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
Anderson.
Aye.
We have public hearings this evening, and the first is for Ordinance 1047, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Blacksburg, Virginia, authorizing the issuance of its general obligation capital improvement and refunding bonds, Series 2024. And we'll start with the staff presentation.
Susan Kaiser will have the staff report.
Ordinance 2047 authorizes the issuance of a maximum of 16.9 million general obligation bonds for a maximum term of 30 years at a maximum rate of 5%. The proceeds of this bond will be used to fund the Harding Avenue sewer shed upgrades, the South Main Cedar Run sewer upgrades, the Harding Avenue stormwater and pedestrian project, the hospital pump station upgrade, the Glade Springs sewer and stormwater projects, the purchase of properties, and other capital projects. This bond issue is in accordance with the town's principles of sound financial management as stated in the capital improvement program, and the last bond issue was November of 2020. This ordinance authorizes the town manager to accept the proposal for the purchase of the bond that is most advantageous to the town. The issue is scheduled for a public sale on May 7th with a closing on May 21st. So be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions? Thank you, Susan. And at this time, we'll take public comment on Ordinance 2047. Other topics we'll take up under public comment later. Okay, seeing no one. What is council's pleasure on ordinance 2047?
I move approval of ordinance 2047.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hager-Smith,
Aye.
Mattingly,
Aye.
Sutphen,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
We'll move on now to the fiscal year 2024-25 recommended budget package. And you have another reading.
Yep. The Virginia State and Local Government Conflict of Interests Act requires that I make disclosure to be recorded in town records in any case in which I am forbidden to participate. Therefore, I make the following disclosure. The transaction involved is approval of ordinance 2048 with a vote scheduled for April 23rd, 2024. My personal interest affected by this transaction is my employment in Community Housing Partners, which receives HUD funding. The appropriations in question are subsection 2 of paragraph 4, which is an $81,800 appropriation to the New River Home Trust, section 3 of paragraph 4, which is a $64,000 appropriation to the New River Housing 2048. CHP headquarters is located at 448 Depot Street, Christiansburg, Virginia. I affirmatively state that I will not vote in any manner or act on behalf of the town council regarding approval of the New River Home Trust funding appropriations at subsections 2 and 3 of paragraph 4, as well as paragraphs 6 and 7 of ordinance 2048. It is my understanding that on April 23rd, 2024, that the relevant sections of paragraphs 4, 6, and 7 will be voted on separately. I will then abstain from voting on that portion of ordinance 2048.
Are we having the combined staff report tonight
Yes,
and the vote on the 23rd?
that is correct.
Okay.
Yep. And the staff report will be quick.
Okay.
You've seen it before over the last month. So, of course, we presented the budget to you all about a month ago. We've been going over it in work sessions since. I'll focus on some things that are changing, but overall, the budget still supports supports town council's goals, supports all the services that the citizens come to expect at levels that they're expected to see. And then addresses the challenges of inflation. That's really the big story of the budget this year, is keeping up with inflationary cost increases. Everything we're doing it costs more than it did several years ago. Keeping up with staffing and making sure our wages stay current so that we can keep employees, but also attract employees to fill vacancies. The overall picture of the budget, it's $105 million total. That's all the funds. About half of the budget, about $54 million, is the general fund. That's where most of the town services come from that people expect, and those are funded primarily by tax revenues. About a quarter of the budget is utility funds. That's things like water, sewer, solid waste, recycling, stormwater. Those are all supported by user fees, so that there's no tax dollars that go into that. It's all self-supporting standalone businesses. And then transit is about a quarter of the budget as well. And that's primarily state and federal grants, a Virginia Tech student fee, and then some contracts that we have with neighboring localities, and a little bit of advertising revenue support the transit system. So that's what operates our bus system. So again, the total budget's $105 million. What we like to do to compare apples to apples year to year is to take out one-time costs that may sway the budget one way or another. So we take out our capital expenditures. And when you do that, it's about a 3.9% increase over last year's operating budget. So that's about consistent with inflation. The general fund is about a 7% increase over last year. That's primarily because we're adding some new positions in the general fund this year. Let's talk about the tax rates. We're keeping the property tax rate the same at $20 per $100 of assessed value. We did have a reassessment last year. So the real estate tax revenues are pretty flat. We are seeing some increases in some of our other revenues, meals taxes, hotels taxes, things of that nature. We're starting to see some increases, but some of those increases are due to the fact of those costs are going up too. So for example, you go out to eat a meal, that meal costs more, and our tax is a percentage of that meal. Looking at utilities, modest increases in our utility rates, really just to account for increases being passed on from the water treatment plant and the sewage treatment plant. No change in our solid waste and recycling rate, and then no change to our stormwater fees. So the average utility bill will go up about $2.70, or about 2%. As we said, the budget continues to support the services and address council goals. We're able to manage inflation, the inflationary cost increases, and as I said, a lot of the revenue growth is due to those inflationary cost increases as well. On the personnel front, our staffing levels have improved significantly over the past 2 years. Coming out of the pandemic, we had a lot of vacancies, as a lot of employers did, a lot of local governments did. And our staffing levels are really about at normal now. So we have kind of normal levels of vacancy. And just to put it in perspective, just in the last 2 years, we've rehired about a third of the town's total full-time workforce. So we've got a lot of new employees that we've hired over the last couple of years. And a lot of those positions came open because people retired. We are giving a salary increase to employees this year to keep current with inflation, and also to allow them to progress through our pay system. But we're also not having a health insurance increase for the town or for employees this year, so that's good news. We are able to add some new positions this year. So we're looking at adding 2 police officers, a business relation manager that will be a person who primarily works with people opening small businesses in Blacksburg, a parks and natural lands coordinator that will help with our park maintenance and really focus on the hundreds of acres of new natural lands that we've acquired up on Brush Mountain and help with invasive species and management in all of our parks. A recreation program associate, which is another position to help with all of our recreation programs. And then 2 positions in public works. One is primarily focused on right-of-way road, right-of-way trail, right-of-way maintenance, tree trimming, brush trimming, things of that nature. And the other will keep the street sweeper out on the street 5 days a week. Right now, it's a water and sewer crew person that typically gets pulled off for other jobs frequently. So this will put a person in that street sweeper on a daily basis. This is the schedule that we've followed. So we presented the budget originally back on March 12th. We've had work sessions on the off council meeting weeks where we've discussed the budget in more detail. We'll hold the public hearing tonight. We'll have another midday work session in case we need to make any final adjustments, and then council can vote on the budget on April 23rd. And then at your work session last week, council did go through the agency funding requests and made some adjustments to a handful of the agencies just to adjust those up, made some modest increases there. You also made some adjustments to your council contingency line item and then reserved some money for the future to go towards the Edgar Long building in Christiansburg, if that's once they have a plan for renovating that building. So those were the changes that you all made in the last few weeks. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. It's a quick overview.
Thank you for that. We'll return to it on April 23. Let's see. Well, public comment. Is there anybody who would like to make at this moment a public comment on the budget, the proposed budget? Yeah.
What up, council? I would like to.
Could you give us your name and your
My name is
address?
Zachary Weiss. 1003 South Main is where I live. I would like to speak on so I have a presentation that I would like to discuss later, but I want to talk about reducing slightly the 28.8% increase of the benefits of the police department to 28%. And that's around $6,000. I think maybe you could consider putting a wind turbine on the police station parking garage, and that on Amazon would only be under $500. So you have some extra money to hire someone to install it and maybe even install a second one. That's all I have to say for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the specifics of the proposed budget? Yeah. Please come forward. Yeah.
Is this related to, this is ordinance 2048, correct?
We're on
49.
2048 and
2048 and 9.
Okay, yes, I do have comment prepared for this. Excuse me for the intrusion. So my name is William Kirschbaum. I reside at 1207 Gladewood Drive. To begin with, I very much thank Mr. Verniel for making many of my points for me already. However, I would like to voice that one thing that strikes me as very important is the town's approach to supporting charitable organizations in our community that act in compliance with the comprehensive plan of Blacksburg, two of which that I very much support on the current proposal that was on the bill was the raise from the standard proposed $2,910 to $3,200 for literacy partners of the New River Valley, as well as increased support for the YMCA. Both of these programs are vital for both students in our community and for community members to gain access to vital services so that they can not only enjoy the town of Blacksburg even more than they already do, but also gain access to vital services such as housing, access to programs of the arts, and athletic activities. This is very important to me, and I'm very grateful that the council made this step, and I hope y'all continue this type of activity. Furthermore, in line with what Ms. Carol Davis shared with us yesterday at the Citizens Institute, which was very much in line with concerns I've heard at Virginia Tech, is the increasing encroachment of invasive species, such as bittersweet and other threats to trees, especially in our viewshed. I am very grateful that the town has taken preemptive action towards securing land on Brush Mountain, not only for protecting the viewshed, but also for taking preemptive action against these invasive species and establishing trails that we can all enjoy, both as students and residents of Blacksburg. This is something I very much support. One thing that is not present in this bill that I hope will be added to future bills and future considerations is protection of bees and apicultures in the area. I am myself a beekeeper, and I believe that it is vitally important for preserving our native bee populations. There have been a variety of Virginia Tech studies that have been conducted indicating resurgences in the honeybee population that I've read online that I think is great, but we need to keep that trend rolling. And I further think that better identification of different bee species and bee behaviors is going to be important for the town's efforts towards ensuring the protection of local species and local ecologies, whether that be in parks or protected lands across the New River Valley. Any effort that the community will make in this regard, I know I will be tremendously grateful, and other people that I know who have expressed concern on these matters would feel grateful as well. I thank you all very much for your time and effort on this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to specifics of the proposed budget at this time? Seeing no one, we will move on to our next item, and that is Ordinance 2050 to amend the fiscal year operating budget to appropriate $2,500,000 of bond proceeds to the General Capital Improvement Fund.
Larry Spencer will cover that item.
This, as the title states, this will appropriate $2.5 million, and when it refers to bond proceeds, those are the bond proceeds that are being authorized tonight. So 2.5 of the larger amount, which is, it's not in the ordinance, but roughly $16 million will be for that. And the subject of that is the purchase of 3 buildings downtown for future expansion of the existing facility at 414 North Main, as well as, and we'll have more on that in the future as we actually purchase those buildings and close.
I think the parking lot of the future needs to accommodate flying cars.
That's what the Flintstones said.
Jetsons.
They're all kind of like the same.
Yeah. Okay, so that was our staff presentation. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this ordinance 2050? Please start with your name and your address.
My name is Gwyneth Homer. I live at 222 Price Street in Blacksburg. First, I should have said this the last time, but I really appreciate granting 25% of the budget to public transit. I have found it immensely helpful, and I know that my fellow citizens have as well. Regarding the purchase of 3 buildings downtown, I wondered if the council had considered buying what used to be the mattress store, and before that was the bookstore, and before that was a Kroger. I think it would make a lovely climbing gym, and I think that it would be, which would address the epidemic of loneliness that is faced by many Virginia Tech students and young people around the area. I think it's an opportunity for an affordable place to climb. As for the parking garage, I think we have way too many parking garages already. one thing that I think would greatly improve downtown Blacksburg is the existence of a public restroom. There have been many, many, many times when Virginia Tech is closed, Squires is closed. I can't go to the bathroom anywhere. And I think many times I go by Kent Square and that parking garage has many vacancies in it. And I think that a public restroom would be much more valuable than more parking, especially with such a robust public transit system that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwyneth. And just to let you know, there is a restroom planned in the budget. I can't say it's going to happen before the next time you're looking and can't find one, but
My name is Zachary Weiss. I live at 1003 South Main. I would like to recommend to the council that if you're going to buy a building downtown, I think you should look into solar tubes or solar pipes as a concept. It's similar to skylights, but you can actually direct sunlight. They have a dome, or typically they're built with a dome on top of a building that is able to get sunlight from all directions, and then you can direct it like a tube of gas or water. If you pipe them throughout the buildings, you could have gardens inside. I think it's totally a great idea, especially for offices that want to have their own indoor gardens. Please consider. Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to ordinance 2050? Okay, seeing no one at this time, we will move on to action. What is council's pleasure?
I move approval of ordinance 2050.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Aye.
Sutphen,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Aye.
Hager Smith.
Hager Smith, I'm sorry.
Aye.
I'm sorry.
It feels wrong to have that one
It
person
threw me
drop
off.
out of the lineup. Thank you. Now we are going on to, we have a presentation. Are we doing that listed? Should we do that first? Yeah, okay.
My name is Zachary Weiss. I live at 1003 South Main Street, and I'm here to talk about wind in Blacksburg. So I just we want to all be sustainable. So there's certain things that we can work towards. And also I noticed walking around Blacksburg is that, the winds get pretty high. So I think there's totally an opportunity here that we can exploit. And especially since there's a large budget increase that's happening because of inflation. And I already mentioned this earlier, that we can take the 28.8% increase of the benefits part of the police budget and bring it down slightly to 28%, which gives us $6,000 to work for. And we can actually use this money on the police station. Can we go to the next slide, please? So behold, wind turbines. You can go to the next slide. So we could have turbines on this street, potentially. This is right next to the police station. But also we could put turbines on top of the parking garage. So there's new personnel and the budget, and they are still going to get paid the same amount, but the benefits will change, and we could probably use wind turbines on the police station, because I noticed that there aren't any solar panels or wind turbines on the police station, as far as I understand. So I think if you're all trying to be sustainable, you should totally consider change the budget in this way, and perhaps we could create some sort of new program across Main Street where we have wind turbines, maybe even build architecture that's like, hey, we're trying to try to build a wind tunnel above the street. So that way the wind turbines are actually built for increased wind use, and these wind turbines are actually quieter. So I understand that a lot of people don't like the sounds that wind turbines make, but with this idea, not only would they be out of sight, but they wouldn't even be heard, because the sound of the cars going on Main Street would be way too loud for them to hear the whir of wind turbines. This is all I have to say for this. I really hope the town council considers this change, and you can reach out to me for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a note to you. I believe it's true that the roof is outfitted for solar panels. Yeah, so it was fitted out for solar panels.
They're not installed, but it's out, the building can support them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll just say this to everybody. There is a Citizens Police Institute that takes place, I think, every fall. Is that right, Chief? And I think that the people in this room would be very impressed at the lengths to which this police department goes to do state-of-the-art, politically training officers. Are the top building is a center. So they do role playing and they have equipment and they do everything they can to interact in the very best interest of us all. And I think you'd be really impressed. And anyone in the town is eligible to participate in the Citizens Police Academy free of charge. Okay, where are we? Citizen comment. And so now I invite anyone to come forward and please begin with your name and your address. It doesn't matter whether you live in town or not, you're welcome to speak here. This is a time when I do remind people that we place a premium on civil discourse and exchange. I don't permit people to heckle each other, and I also discourage applause or other expressions. This is a time when everyone needs to feel heard. So please come forward, and you may speak on any topic of your wish.
Hello, my name is Bikram Gill. I live at 2703 Tall Oaks Drive in Blacksburg. And I would like to speak on genocide in Gaza. I would like to begin by noting that while it is hard to make a statement after previously indicating it would not be a statement, I'm sorry to say that the content of the statement is mostly sufficient. I say this in hoping the conversation can continue. I said after listening to this thing, I sense fear or a lack of conviction that seems to be totally out of step with reality we face. This is not a case of two sides of complicated conflict. History will record at the moment we're in right now, and I teach political science. I am certain that history will record that what we're witnessing in Gaza right now will be recorded as the worst genocide of our times. Now think about what the word genocide means. This is not a two-sided conflict. In the letter, there's all of these concerns about multiple sides of the conflict. We have a situation in which 2% of the population of Palestinians in Gaza have been massacred. 5% of the population have either been massacred or maimed. 15,000 of those are children. Ask yourself if you have a single conflict, and you don't. Your children have been massacred at this rate. You know the intelligence that Israel has. It knows where people are. It knows they are massacring children. It knows they are maiming children. Never has a population been starved this rapidly. This is uncontroversial. Never have we witnessed this level of deep starvation in our lifetimes. This is totally unprecedented. This is not a two-sided conflict. This is genocide on one hand, colonization, and the right for the Palestinians to freedom and to have their own state. I fear that the council is abdicating its moral and ethical responsibility by hiding behind so-called informal rules that the international is beyond the reach of this council. By hiding behind a concern of those who might favor genocide, because that's all it can be. How could anybody think that there are two sides to this? Either the genocide ends or it's not. So what I want to impress upon the council tonight, we are not innocent or neutral. Where does the local end and the international begin? In a town in which through which wealth flows, that is tied to a military industrial complex, that is tied to a university that produces weapons that are being deployed in Gaza. We are not neutral, we are complicit. You can go down in history as being part of a wave that got ahead of it. You may feel fear, you may feel there'll be backlash, but know there'll be many people standing with you. And it's not enough to say the international is beyond the reach of the council. We are international. Blacksburg is not simply Blacksburg, Virginia. It's not simply Blacksburg, Virginia, United States. We are enmeshed in a world economy and in a world political system. This genocide in Gaza is not simply Israel's. The Israeli newspaper Haaretz has long recognized this would have ended long ago without US weapons. We know the Biden administration has hundreds of weapons transfers to Israel during this conflict. This would have ended so long ago, we wouldn't have seen the images we continue to see coming out of Shifa Hospital this week, where that hospital was turned into a death camp. 381 bodies were recovered this past Saturday. Again, I implore you to consider you have a choice to either continue to be complicit in a context in which profits flowing through the weapons industry flow through this town are massacring people in Gaza, or we can stand up and we can say, no, we refuse to be a part of this. If Harrisonburg, Virginia can make a ceasefire resolution and the mayor of Harrisonburg promises to go to Washington and deliver this ceasefire resolution to senators in Washington, D.C. and to the Biden administration, so can Blacksburg,
Thank
without
you.
question.
Thank you.
So I implore you and I encourage you to take such a stand.
Thank you.
My name is Abdurrahman Hassan. I live at 200 Cedar Point. The real ugly face of America is unhideable worldwide. People of the world have witnessed for decades that the U.S. government funds, supports, protects, and arms the terrorist state in the Middle East, occupying the land we lived in for thousands of years. Every human who lives on U.S. soil must be ashamed to be directly or indirectly a part of this regime. For decades, the U.S. government has sponsored, funded, protected, and armed the terrorist state in the Middle East, occupying our land. Every day, a new massacre in Palestine against civilians, women, children, international humanitarian organization members, and media coverage crew. Every day, videos from Palestine show how cowardly and weak are the soldiers of the terrorist state in the battle against Palestine resistance groups. Armed resistance against occupation is justified by the human law. On December 3rd, 1982, the United Nations General Assembly resolution removed any or debate over the lawful entitlement of occupied people to resist occupying forces, including armed struggle. Stop talking about human rights and liberty. You're a liar. Everyone in the world witnessed how the U.S. government reacted to Palestine compared to Ukraine. U.S. troops all over the world are to control the oil, support dictatorship, and seize the natural resources, not to promote American values. How many churches, mosques, hospitals, schools, universities, and homes of civilian people lived on their land peacefully for centuries? The U.S. supplied the bombs, taxpayer funded. Ceasefire now, divest now. Stop arming, funding, protecting, and sponsoring the terror state in the Middle East.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak?
So I also thank you for appreciate that. However, while we appreciate that the Blacksburg Town Council is finally making a statement about Israel's war on Gaza after 6 months of bombing, with 32,500 Palestinian civilians killed, half of whom were children, we feel that the statements fall short of any real attempt to take accountability in this genocide, and that you're underestimating your power to influence our national leaders. So I think that we stand together and our influence. And I think you're with us as citizens of Blacksburg. There is no such thing as Bikram was saying, that there's two sides to genocide. What is happening in Gaza is clear as day, and as elected leaders, is your duty to lead with moral integrity and take action in your power to call for immediate ceasefire. The faster, the better, too. Netanyahu has promised to go into the southern city of Rafah. 1.4 million people are in sheltering in Rafah right now. 600,000 of them are children, and there is no place for them to go. There is no place. All of the cities are gone. It's razed. So I don't know. There's already no food. There's already no clean water. And so many children are already been mangled and killed and are orphaned and burned. Over 13,000 children. So it's genocide. So I believe that when Israel goes into Rafah, it will be a bloodbath. And when all the destruction is revealed, you will be appalled that you did not use this platform to call for a ceasefire. And a ceasefire is minimum. It's minimum to call for a ceasefire. It's not a threat to anybody. And if it is, then we have to question why that would be a threat to somebody to call for a ceasefire to the end of this aggression. It's horrifying. If we collectively put pressure on the Biden administration, we could potentially save thousands of lives, including the lives of the Israeli hostages. A statement from council would turn up the heat on the administration to stop sending weapons to aid Israel. And the Israeli government is dependent on our arms, our aid, and our political cover. And with US support, they have wiped out most of Gaza. We are urging you to stand in solidarity with the majority of Americans who disapprove of Israel's siege on Gaza. And we have an online petition that has accumulated 200 signatures from Blacksburg citizens in 5 days, and it's growing. And in the petition, we urge the town council to, 1, pass a resolution calling for an immediate lasting ceasefire in Gaza, 2, call for immediate end of the blockade and allow desperately needed humanitarian aid into Gaza, for real, letting that aid in. Insist that the United States reinstate funding to UNRWA, and 4, call on representatives at the state and federal levels to pressure the Israeli government with arms embargo to force compliance with international law and the US Lehi law, and also to respect the human rights of the Palestinian people. And I have a copy of the petition, the signatures right here, to give you both the handwritten ones and the electronic ones that we've collected, and also a copy of a potential draft resolution. And who should I give this to?
Clerk.
Our clerk, please. Thank you. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan Peterson, 995 Church Street. I lived in Blacksburg, so when I was buying a house. Okay. So in 1938, David Ben-Gurion, the national founder and first prime minister of Israel, wrote in a letter to the Jewish Agency executive, "I am for compulsory transfer. I do not see anything immoral in it." In 2003, Rachel Corrie, the American activist who was crushed to death by an Israeli tank only 2 weeks after writing this in a letter to her mother, said, "So I think when all means of survival is cut off in a pen, Gaza, which people can't get out of, I think that qualifies as a genocide. If they could get out, I think it would still qualify as a genocide." In 2017, Ilan Pappé, Israeli professor, said, "In fact, after the onset of the Operation Cast Lead in 2009, I have opted to call the Israeli policy an incremental genocide. I hesitated before using this highly charged term, yet cannot find another to accurately describe what happened." In 2018, Norman Finkelstein, a Jewish professor and son of Holocaust survivors, called Gaza the world's largest concentration camp. In November 2023, the Radford Army ammunition plant, less than 10 miles from here, was mentioned in an article by the U.S. Army as a manufacturer of 155mm artillery shells that Biden bypassed Congress to sell to Israel after October 7, 2023. Also in November 2023, a 155mm artillery shell was launched by Israel into 2 hospitals, Al-Shifa in Gaza, as well as Mays Al-Jabal Governmental Hospital in civilians, which is one single example of many war crimes being committed. In 2023, in January, the ICJ said the International Court of Justice has found it plausible that Israel has committed acts that violate the Genocide Convention. What I find interesting is that after all this history, this is what the Blacksburg Town Council had to say in April of 2024. As a local governing body, we recognize we lack the authority or means to directly influence events unfolding half a world away. These events, which are the continuation of a genocide that's been going on for years, are literally being carried out using weapons made in our community by members of our community. If someone came into your home, shot your entire family, and you somehow survived, only to be forced off your land, even though you still have the keys to your house, and then the same people who do that again in over 531 villages around you, and then shove their survivors into a walled city where they control all the food, water, and medicine coming in and out, and airstrike their survivors like fish in a barrel, what would you do? And what would you want the people arming the groups committing these acts to say? When I have grandkids one day and they ask me about Gaza and how we let a genocide go on for so long, I'll be sure to tell them that our community's town council couldn't even pass a permanent ceasefire resolution that includes the words Palestine or genocide. As usual, I've added a copy of my comments printed with all the sources that I'm saying, and I'll give that to the town clerk like last time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
All right. Hello, my name is Gabrielle Smanetro Parker. I live at 2428 Ridge Road in Blacksburg. So I'm here to discuss genocide and water. These two are so intricately intertwined. I wanted to inform all of you just of how intertwined it is. I'm happy to hear about the resolution for a ceasefire, but I would like an additional resolution to show your dedication to the cause. A resolution to ban fluoridation. So you all are very wrong in saying that you cannot affect events happening across the world. Allow me to explain. First, fluoridation is a violation of our constitutional right, that being the First and 14th Amendment protecting us from being subjected to medication against our will, which fluoride is. It is the only thing added to our water that does not treat the water but the population instead. There is no similarities between fluorination and fluorination. We never gave our consent as we were never given full disclosure about this chemical. Disclosure that after years of research, I will now provide. Fluoride is a carcinogenic endocrine disrupting enzyme killer. That was the only thing to refine the uranium for the atomic bomb, hence the uranium hexafluoride gas, which in turn made fluoride and all of its research top secret. That is why you have not heard of the hundreds of studies conducted by biochemists, allergists, dental researchers, other scientists showing these effects. If you were to ban this industrial waste from our water supply, industries like the aluminum and superphosphate fertilizer industry would have to start paying millions to dispose of this waste. Once we get it out of our water, we can focus on fluoride in our air, not only because we are living next to a military installation that open burns, providing us with a huge blast of perfluorinated fumes and toxins, putting this whole population at risk of being actually put in the danger zone of fluoride intake. It is because of the fluorination process, and this is where things get really interesting. Do you know how many industries rely on the fluorination process? That is, fluoride or fluorine to produce materials for national defense. All of them: aluminum, steel, rubber, plastic, explosives, propellants, weather heat-resistant coatings, aerosols. All of these and refrigerants. All of these industries rely so heavily on the fluorination process. You know what this process also produces? Forever chemicals. Guess what the F stands for in PFOA, PFOS? That's right, they are perfluorinated, environmentally persistent chemicals. So to recap, we are being poisoned by water additives that are of the same chemical constituents that are in the production of that are used in the production of very vital materials for a genocide that is occurring, that is also producing chemicals that are robbing the earth of its future every single day. Industry is actively, right before our eyes, trying to cover up this Achilles tendon of the military-industrial complex, as evident in the Enhanced versus EPA case right now, which is showing how the military-industrial complex would be literally bankrupt overnight from the banning of fluoridation and the fluorination process. This is an easy solution that can have a great effect not only on our area, but the world. So you're wrong that you cannot affect the events taking place around the world right now. You would be saving an untold amount of lives, not only of your own residents here in Blacksburg, but all around the world. I'm asking for a resolution to end this dangerous and archaic practice, and I wish for you all to be the change. I would also like to request lead testing in our schools. I have not found Town Council, Virginia Department of Health, school, county officials. No one can tell me the last time lead testing has been conducted in our schools, and also the removal of chloramines as well, that is adding to our lead problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is still Gwyneth Homer, and I still live at 222 Bryce Street in Blacksburg. I was initially pleased to see that that a statement was released, and I am glad to hear that it has been sent to our representatives in Congress. I will admit, though, that I was a little bit disappointed. I wonder if you think that it wouldn't make a difference to do so. But Blacksburg is the home to Virginia Tech, which is historically a military institute that has long been preparing students in some departments to work for defense contractors who design, manufacture, and profit from the very weapons that are currently deployed to murder Palestinians. The student body has made clear their support for a ceasefire resolution, and if the town wherein Virginia Tech resides were to do the same, perhaps that would apply enough pressure for such an influential institution to do the same. There might be the concern that you would be labeled as anti-Semitic, but a ceasefire would mean no killing on either side. So it would actually be saving Jewish lives too. As I mentioned about a month ago, I work in childcare. We work very hard through modeling and guidance to instill the values of compassion, empathy, and the right to say no. Saying no isn't just about consent or establishing boundaries, but also about standing up for others. When teaching about bullying, we always tell kids not to be bystanders. After all, it has been said that to see an injustice and say nothing is to take the side of the oppressor. In this case, neutrality is passivity. It is saying that it's okay for US militarism to run rampant all over the world, that it's okay for Netanyahu's authoritarianism to go unchecked, that it's okay for US-made weapons to be used to unhouse, maim, orphan, and kill Palestinians. But we can do better. We can be better. We can model that compassion and that empathy. We can show what it looks like to stand up to bullies. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment?
James Hardell, 233 Price Street, Blacksburg. Have any of you heard of Victor Davis Hanson? Any of you heard of that name? He's a noted historian, military historian in California. It's very, very well known. I just received an article from him called Gaza, Truth Beyond All the Lies. I think you'll find it reading, and I'll give you copies. One of the things in there that I want to have you hear is that the so-called international community is Israel agreed to a ceasefire. But there already was a ceasefire. Did you know that? Ceasefire until October 7th. And guess what happened October 7th? Hamas broke it by massacring 1,200 Jews and taking more than 250 hostages. Is that humane or what? I don't think so. I'm just going to read a couple of inserts from this so you get a feel for what's happening. The international community favors Hamas. Nevertheless, it knows it would be safer to be a prisoner of Israel than Hamas. Why is that? It knows the women are not going to be raped in custody by Israelis, but by Hamas. Who does what? And the unnamed are more likely to be mutilated and decapitated by Hamas than Israelis. Did you know that? Oh. So I'm going to leave with not saying anymore, except that there is a big truth behind all the lies. And this Victor Davis Hanson is one of the stellar historian military people. So I'll let the copies be with you.
Thank you.
I have extra copies.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Dr. Desiree Poets. My address is 3746 Mount Tabor Road, Blacksburg. In 1948, after the end of the British Mandate in Palestine, Zionist organizations systematically planned the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. That ethnic cleansing is known as the Nakba, as the Great Tragedy. So there was no peace before October 7. There have been waves of ethnic cleansing and of genocide against Palestinians. So when we bring out a statement that says just conflict, that says suffering, that says tragic crisis, but doesn't say genocide, we are being complicit. This genocide isn't half a world away. It affects us here when our tax dollars directly funded. It affects us here when our consumption patterns directly and indirectly funded. Palestine is here too. That includes through our Palestinian and Palestinian descendant neighbors, our brothers and sisters, and it includes all of us who are enraged and grieving alongside them. And we grieve for the US's complicity and its direct support and active involvement in the genocide of Palestinian people. Our town statement shouldn't shy away from calling the situation what it is. It is a genocide backed by the United States. We shouldn't shy away from voicing our dissent from this support, and we shouldn't shy away from voicing our support for Palestinian lives and for Palestinian liberation. Palestinian freedom, this is what we stand for as a community. So all else will fall short of our responsibilities and our duties as citizens and of our town council's responsibilities as our representatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment?
Before we hit the start button, I just wanted to say it's nice to see you for a long time since it's been at Anderson and Associates. Ms. Spalding, I want to thank you for fielding my calls a couple weeks ago. And I wanted to thank the Madam Mayor and the council members again for affording me the opportunity to speak before you. I'm here to remind you of what you said 2 weeks ago. This body does not have the purview to sign or proclaim any demand for an immediate or permanent ceasefire in Gaza. You cannot speak for the citizens of this town about international politics, specifically when you have no metric for determining what the majority of the citizens believe or want. Today, I'm channeling memories of 4 wonderful history and government teachers from Blacksburg High School. Over 45 years ago, Jane Rivers, Sandra Sumner, Frank Mosley, and local government legend Annette Perkins taught their students about making sure to vote and address their government to speak our minds. These weren't just individual rights, but important civic responsibilities. In the beginning, I was upset about these demonstrators and what they considered as ridiculous demands. I was outraged at their Friday night Henderson Lawn annex, chanting from the river to the sea and red palms waving, the first being a call for the eradication of the Jewish community and the destruction of the country, the second representing the brutal murder of 2 IDF reservists. I was angry at their casual acceptance and dismissal of the brutal massacre, the senseless, bloody slaughter perpetrated by Hamas radicals on October 7th. Ironic considering they are against apartheid and genocide. By then, I thought of my teachers long ago and realized that these demonstrators are just citizens exercising the right to be heard, which is a wonderful thing. It's obvious they are passionate about their beliefs. Having been an instructor at Virginia Tech for over a decade, I realize this is a teaching moment. War is horrible. It's messy. It's bloody, unfair. Innocent people die. Okay? And And these passionate demonstrators are wrong, dead wrong to be specific. They protest about the results of the war. They do not protest the cause of what this time is the radical Hamas regime. Let's start with this. Anybody know what the most persecuted religious group is today? Christians, followed by the Jews and then Muslims. That's right, look it up. It's been that way for several decades. Historically, though, Judaism has been the most persecuted religious faith. Since 1948, Israel has constantly fought for existence, being surrounded by hostile countries on all sides. Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, all whose religions call for its demise. They have fought through other wars and 3 intifadas. Overwhelmingly, the Israeli people want to live their lives in peace, but continue to fight to survive. Israel is not perfect, neither is the United States, but we are a far cry from how the Palestinians in Gaza are treated by their tyrannical government. 2 examples are, and this is for Mr. Sutton, this is the call for Queers for Palestine. This should be of particular importance for you and your tireless advocacy of LGBTQ community and their rights. The Israel-Hamas war has made political allies out of some unusual bedfellows, yet the strangest pairing on display thus far is probably Queers for Palestine. The protesters appear to be blaming Israel for those attacks, which have included, among other things, Hamas militants murdering people, filming these acts, and putting the videos on social media for the victims' families and friends to see. It's perverse, but to marry that cause to LGBT rights is simply unhinged from reality. The other thing that I'm just going to very quickly state is you can go to online and you can see that the status of women in Gaza is horrendous. The only way to end this is to go against what the actual cause is, and that's the government that we know is Hamas. Okay? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Do we have other speakers this evening?
Hello, my name is Vish Gill. I live at 2703 Tall Oaks. This is my third time addressing you all. Thank you for letting the previous gentleman totally eclipse his timer. That was very interesting.
I did that for about 5 people before him too. And if
Sorry,
you don't waste more of our time, I'll give you a little too.
So I just wanted to comment on the statement that you guys put out earlier. It was very, obviously, it's a step in the right direction. The word, I understand how you guys have to, I understand how you guys have to take into account all sides, or that's what they want you to do. You didn't mention the word Palestine in the statement. You said Gaza and Israel. It would be nice for you guys to mention the word Palestine at least once. The wording, also humanitarian crisis in Gaza and Israel. As you guys are aware, there's absolutely no humanitarian crisis in Israel. I'm not exactly sure why that was included in the resolution, in the statement. Also, it was worded as a cessation of hostilities when the demand right now from the vast majority of Americans is a ceasefire. That is the wording that should be used in any resolution to be attached to this movement. Cessation of hostilities, I think, is a very clear way to avoid any sort of actual stand. But, what do I know? I would like to use the remainder of my time, about 1 minute, to observe a moment of silence for the 32,000 dead Palestinians and the 15,000 dead Palestinian children who have been murdered by the Israeli occupation forces. And I would, as my last statement, I would just like to voice my support for a stronger resolution, and just to make it clear that we will continue to push for a stronger resolution from the town council. Thank you, and free Palestine.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak this evening?
Hi, I'm Perry Jones. I live at 2803 Tolks Drive. I'd just like to echo what my classmate Ish said. Me and my fellow townspeople have been coming here for the past 3 or 4 town council meetings. Again, just to tell you guys that the statement you put out today was far from enough. Those words of sympathy should have come 6 months ago when this genocide began. The more those hollow words like cease hostilities come out, the more you are allowing thousands of innocent people to die. A ceasefire is one of the easiest things you guys can do right now, the power that you have. Charlottesville did it, Harrisonburg did it, and thousands of cities across the United States have done it. I don't understand why you think that statement would be necessary, but not a statement of ceasefire. I just implore you, you're hearing a lot of varying opinions. Go online, do your research, because the photo evidence coming out of Gaza right now is clear, and it's showing that thousands of innocent civilians are dying. So your silence, you're sitting here behind these seats like you have done for the last town council meetings. We're going to keep coming because we believe that these people have a right to resist, they have a right to return to their land, and they have a right to live. And I'm a high school student in Blacksburg. The person the same age as me in Gaza deserves the same rights that I have. So please keep listening to us, and please take these words that we're saying, turn them into actions, pass a ceasefire resolution. It's the easiest thing you can do, and it's helping save lives in Gaza, and I don't know if you know it. So thank you.
Is anyone else prepared to speak this evening during council comments?
Hello, my name is Salam Ismail Tawashi, and I reside at 109 Orchard View Lane. Well, it took me a lot of courage to walk in here and talk to you guys, but I couldn't not do it because that's the least I can do for my folks up there. It's been, just the fact that I came from Jersey, Syria was my other country. It was a safe home for me and my family for the longest time before it got eaten up by civil war. And if I know anything, I know PTSD, and I know family loss, and I know pain, and I definitely know frustration, and I know dictatorship. So from that point of view, I would like to address all of you and encourage you to be humans. Being a human when first encountered by any argument between two parties, the very first concern I have is to stop the physical damage. Stop fighting, then we can take it from there and have a conversation like humans should do. So for us to start into politics, to take sides, to even look around, to even talk about considering other parties when there are people dying on the ground, civilians who had nothing to do with any terrorist organization, kids who know nothing about any political views, who just their only and one mistake that they born in Gaza. Our privilege that we born here, their misfortune that they born in Gaza. So can you please listen to your humanity and use the term cease fire now in your next statement? Please. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still in citizen comment.
Good evening. Once again, my name is William Kirschbaum. I reside at 1207 Gladewood Drive. To be perfectly honest, I'm very surprised that y'all managed to compose that very cordial, respectful announcement for the community. To be honest, I was not expecting anything to come out of this board. Given the great divisive nature of this entire discussion here. And I think that the fact that the community stepped up and made a step in the right direction is applaudable. And I would like to thank all of you for taking the time and the effort to listen to all of the community of Blacksburg, not only the people in this room, but those also outside of it. This is absolutely a step in the right direction. And I think the next step is going to be really walking that talk locally here in Blacksburg. We can discuss, signing a stronger ceasefire petition for the future. I think that is something that we should discuss and consider for the future, but I want to focus on right now for the sake of what I know. I think that we need to be supportive of migrants. I think that we need to be supportive of people who have been negatively impacted by this conflict by no fault of their own and who have sought refuge here in Blacksburg. I think that these are people that this community and this council can very directly impact in a positive way. And I think that those individuals should be supported by either the government directly or nonprofits that the government sponsors. I will once again, plug in Literacy Volunteers of the New River Valley. I will once again speak on behalf of YMCA and other groups in this community. I think that this council has, as has been said before, an ethical obligation to look after the citizens of this community that vote for you that have been negatively impacted by this conflict. Once again, I think that the petition, that the statement that has been made is applaudable, at least from what I know and what I believe. I think that the next step is going to be drafting resolutions and tangible legislation to really show that you believe those words locally here in Blacksburg. Because in the end, your duty as a council is to provide public service and improve the quality of life of citizens of Blacksburg. And I think that when you do that, when you build that rapport and that respect, and you build that commitment to the petition that you made, or excuse me, to the statement that you made, at that point, I think, if it's very well received in the community, then it makes sense to really have a serious discussion about taking a stronger stance on the issue. Because at that point, you've integrated the entire community, you have a full roster of ideas and opinions. We've heard some very we've heard two very different sides of the story here tonight, and I think both sides are equally valid in their statements, and they both need to be considered heavily by council. And once again, walk the talk, what you've already said, publicly and officially, in the community, continue the dialogue, keep gathering information, and then make an informed decision about your next step. Thank you so much for your hard work thus far.
Thank you. We are still in citizen comments. Okay, thank you. I will close this portion of the agenda, and we will move on now to unfinished business. Do we have any, council? New business? And council announcements.
I just want to reiterate once again that the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority will be hosting an open house on April 18th from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the Montgomery County Government Center. This is the next public engagement event as we continue to move forward to bring passenger rail service to our community. So I encourage everyone to get out there and see what's going on.
This is a favor to Councilwoman Colliver, who's out tonight. She asked me to remind you all that Arbor Day, I'm also Lauren tonight. Arbor Day is coming up April 20th, and the town is hosting a tree planting event from 9 a.m. to noon at 615 Patrick Henry Drive. This is a roundabout way of asking you all to come out and help plant trees. I'll be out there with town staff as well. So thank you.
Thank you. A planning process that has been a long time in the offing is starting on Thursday this week, and that will include elected officials and staff people from the town of Christiansburg, from the town of Blacksburg, from the county, and from Virginia Tech, including at this moment, the roster includes both the president and the provost. So I have some high hopes for what we might devise together, and it will involve lots of people in the fullness of time, and it won't be a fast process, but it commences on Thursday, and I thought this would be the right time to mention it. We have others? Okay. In that event, we are now adjourned, and we will enter a closed meeting.
I move that we go into a closed meeting pursuant to the personnel exemption as permitted by Virginia Code 2.23711A1 for annual discussion and evaluation of the performance and salaries of the town manager, town clerk, and town attorney.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hudson,
Aye.
Watson,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Ford. Smith.
Aye.
Aye.